Season's greetings from Gold FM 93 or 93.2 island-wide.
The news headlines on Gold FM.
Good evening, I'm Atik Rumi, bringing you the news on Gold FM. In your headlines, did the government overestimate disaster damage? All but 640 schools reopen post-Ditwa. Is mankind digging its own cyclonic grave? In your news overseas, India charges Pakistan-based militant groups in Pahalgam attack. Mathisha Patirana makes IPL history. Sports Ministry confirms appointment of new cricket selection committee chief. Will Lankan chess get a checkmate if it continues this gambit?
The top story on Gold FM.
Ministry officials have submitted their estimates for the recent disaster's infrastructure damage, immediately raising questions about over the total national cost. The Road Development Authority informed the Parliamentary Oversight Committee that it incurred a 75 billion rupee loss. The damage includes 316 roads and 40 bridges, with approximately 190 billion rupees required for complete restoration and repair. Separately, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board reported estimated losses of 5.6 billion rupees, and the Ceylon Electricity Board incurred a loss of about 20 billion rupees. These figures come to light amid great uncertainty regarding the total quantification of national damage. While some financial experts estimate the total damage at just over $1 billion, the government's figure is 7 times that amount. First Capital Research, in their analysis of the situation, estimates the total damage incurred by the disaster to be no more than $1.1 billion, while prominent economist Dr. Kenneth De Silva's estimate is around 320 billion rupees, which translate to little over $1 billion. The Department of Meteorology states that the current rain situation in the northern and eastern parts of the island is expected to persist for the next few days due to the influence of the easterly wave flow. The department indicates that this could lead to heavy rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters in certain areas of the eastern, central and Uva provinces, as well as the Polonnaruwa district. Furthermore, some places in the rest of the island may also experience moderately heavy rain exceeding 75 millimeters. The National Building Research Institute today issued landslide warnings for several divisional secretariat divisions in the Badulla, Kandy, Kurunegala, Mathale and Norelia districts. Meanwhile, the spill gates of the Kalavava and Kaudulla reservoirs have also been opened. The Department of Irrigation advises people living in the low-lying areas of these reservoirs to exercise caution. It is reported that the spill gates of 68 reservoirs are currently open, including 26 major reservoirs and 42 medium-scale reservoirs controlled by the Department of Irrigation. Additionally, the Sungavira-Somavati road, which was closed due to flooding, has been reopened to traffic. Early landslide warnings issued for several districts have been extended after authorities reviewed current ground conditions and recent rainfall across parts of the island. Previously issued Level 3 warnings were lifted. However, Level 2 landslide warnings were extended for 25 divisional secretariat divisions in Kandy, Kurunegala and Norelia districts, advising residents to remain cautious and vigilant. Meanwhile, Level 1 landslide warnings, advising people to remain watchful, have been issued for several DSDs in Badulla, Kurunegala, Mathale and Norelia districts. The second phase of the third school term, which was postponed due to the disasters affecting the island, began today. However, 640 schools in the Uva, central and northwestern provinces, which were severely impacted by the bad weather, did not open today. To accommodate students, a decision was made to allow those from affected schools or those facing transport difficulties to temporarily continue their education at the nearest school to their residence. Since school uniforms were not mandatory due to the disaster, children were seen attending school dressed in alternative attire. The Ministry of Education has reissued instructions to all principals, emphasizing that the directive not to hold term tests for grades 6 to 10 during the third school term must be strictly implemented. 73 children have been reported to have lost one or both parents due to the floods, landslides, and other disasters caused by Cyclone Ditwa. The Ministry of Women and Child Affairs stated that the highest number of such cases, 21, was reported from the Badulla district. Information was reported regarding 20 children from the Kandy district, with significant numbers also reported from the Kegal and Nuwara districts. With 650 lives lost and a few hundred more missing, it is very well publicized that Cyclone Ditwa was one of the worst environmental catastrophes in the country's recent past. With that being the case, one could question whether climate change directly plays a part in the impact of adverse weather. To find answers, we spoke with Kaif Salih, the director of the Climate Intelligence Network, who began by outlining how a cyclone is born and the possibility of climate change playing a part. Salih went on to comment on how climate change correlates to the intensity of the weather. With the link between the adverse impact and climate change clearly linked, the question moves to how countries can make a difference. The importance of taking adverse natural occurrences into account during construction was also broached upon by Salih.
Like we are at the moment not really going to face what we will be facing, but I think people have also, due to the recent disaster, understood that, and some serious conversations are now being held to figure out how we can adapt.
With the link between the adverse impact and climate change clearly linked, the question moves to how countries can make a difference. This is Professor Benjamin Horton of the School of Energy and Environment at the City University of Hong Kong.
Adaptation. Is there a point, do you think, where adaptation may no longer be enough, where migration, in fact, becomes the only viable option for some regions? Are we headed in that direction?
At some point, if we don't solve the problem, and the problem is our emissions of greenhouse gases, the increases in temperature are going to be too great, that the storms that people receive will be too intense, and they'll be too frequent. That's why we have this concept of planetary boundaries. We stated that you couldn't go beyond the planetary boundary of 1.5 degrees C warming above pre-industrial levels, and we are at that boundary right now. Solar energy now is the cheapest form of energy that we have ever had. We have the solutions readily available to solve this problem. But if we do not, and we keep on putting greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, our adaptations everywhere in the world, developed and developing countries, will not be sufficient. And then we'll have some significant problems. And one of them is human migration. With high rates of sea level rise, people have to migrate because they lose their place that they live along our coastlines. 5 of our 10 largest cities on planet Earth are on coastal regions. And then you have to think about, how do we adapt? Climate change is here now, so it is a new normal, but it's always going to get worse. So people think about these record-breaking storms that we're having in 2025. Well, this time next year, they will be worse. And in 2027, they'll be worse than that. And in 2028 and 2030 and 2040 and 2050, until we solve the problem.
But for countries like Sri Lanka, which are currently recovering from debt and suffering from below par credit ratings, the upfront investments required for a move towards renewable energy might be unfeasible, as explained by Seera Heja, a program officer of the Climate Change Program of the Centre for Science and Environment.
The international financial system make it more expensive for certain countries to access it at scale still. The IMF style austerity, or like we're looking at countries ridden by sovereign debt. So already mounting fiscal pressures for governments to then try and prioritize only climate action or development, and even ending up at a question of development versus climate, is a problem in and of itself.
Sri Lanka decided to join the Global Coalition for Social Justice under the International Labour Organization. This was announced by Cabinet spokesperson Dr. Nalinda Jatissa at today's Cabinet press briefing. By joining the coalition, Sri Lanka aims to strengthen employer-employee relations, increase women's participation in the workforce, improve working conditions in the informal sector, and enhance social protection measures. These include accident insurance, maternity benefits, and unemployment insurance for workers in the semi-government and private sectors. The Cabinet also approved Sri Lanka's co-hosting of the Asian Regional Debt Management Conference in late May 2026. The conference, organized annually by the Asian Development Bank, will be held over 4 to 5 days and will include surveys and technical workshops. It will bring together officials from finance ministries, central banks, and debt management offices across Asia. Additionally, Cabinet approval was granted to increase the cost of the Lower Malwatu-Oya multipurpose development project to 47.18 billion rupees and to extend the project period until the 31st of December 2030. Launched in 2016, the project aims to address water scarcity, boost agricultural production across more than 30,000 acres in the Mannar district, generate hydropower, As part of the digital transformation of Sri Lanka's judicial system, the Cabinet has approved 150 million rupees for the e-Court project. The funds will be allocated to the Judicial Service Commission under the Clean Sri Lanka project. This initiative will expand digital systems currently used by the Supreme Court to all courts across the island. It aims to reduce case delays, improve data transparency, and enhance efficiency in line with the IMF Reform Agenda 2026 to 2030 and the Clean Sri Lanka strategy. The Inland Revenue Department has announced a postponement for the effective date of the new tax invoice format and specifications for all VAT-registered persons. Originally set for the 1st of January next year, the revised deadline for compliance is now the 1st of April. The change is the result of requests from numerous VAT-registered businesses.
Now for some news in brief.
The inaugural budget of the Balapiti Pradesh Sabha, currently controlled by the National People's Power, was defeated at today's council meeting by a one-vote margin.
The business news on Gold FM.
The all-share price index of the Colombo Stock Exchange closed at 22,333.25 after gaining 38.48 points today. The S&P SL20 index ended at 6,071.12 after gaining 18.82 points. The market turnover was 2.8 billion rupees.
International news on Gold FM.
India's National Investigation Agency filed a charge sheet over the April attack on tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir that killed 26 people.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
US President Donald Trump filed a $5 billion defamation suit against the BBC, claiming a Panorama documentary maliciously doctored his 6th of January speech.
Sports news on Gold FM.
The IPL mini-auction concluded with Sri Lanka's Matisha Pathrana shattering the record for the most expensive Sri Lankan player ever sold. The 22-year-old fast bowler was picked up by the Kolkata Knight Riders for a staggering 180 million Indian rupees, and all-rounder Wanindu Hasaranga was secured by the Lucknow Super Giants for 30 million. Setting the global benchmark, Australia's Cameron Green became the most expensive overseas signing in league history, commanding an astonishing 252 million Indian rupees. The Ministry of Sports confirmed the appointment of former national cricketer Pramod Wickramasinghe as chairman of the National Cricket Selection Committee, alongside members Indika Disaram, Tharanga Paranivithanam, Vinodan John, and Rasanjali D. Alvis. That's it for the news. I'm Atik Rumi.